So what I wanted to share with y'all, or well, with YouTube, was I have one of these Craftsman mid-90s contractor style table saw, and I love this thing. And I seen a video by a gentleman who was talking about getting one of these saws used and just showing them some love. Okay, and that's what I've done. Now, the main thing I was concentrating on in this video is the dust collection. So I've been looking through a lot of videos about dust collection for these things. As you can see there, I have a 4-inch flex hose run from a PVC system that goes outside to a I think a 1 horsepower dust collector, which is also a Craftsman. And this just goes up to a very cheap Harbor Freight tray accessory that you can buy in the kit. It comes in a box with all the hose. It's a dust collection accessory kit, which seems to be the only thing that they keep in store anyways. Okay, now what I did here though is, what I wanted you to see is this setup. Okay, when this setup, these are some panels that move with the saw for dust collection to close off, because there's a giant open hole right here for this wheel to move in that direction, and this lock moves in that direction as well. Whenever you turn the saw blade here on a 45, oh, there's no saw blade on it. So I wanted the dust collection, and I wanted to be able to leave this stuff on the saw permanent. Like any adjustments that are made to the saw blade, this houses it. It moves with the saw, so it actually moves just over to where it's almost touching the router table that I have on the left wing of the saw. And you know, I might do another video on this as well, but the main driving factor to doing this, which is just a 90-degree attachment to change the bevel of the miter of the table saw, this panel comes over here behind this cord and really gets in the way, or it was really in the way of the crank. And I never did like the hand crank anyways, because it is 64 or 70 some turns total, I believe, to go from 90. It's close to 65. I don't really recall. I wrote it right there somewhere on the saw, I believe. Anyways, it's a lot. It's like your life ticking away as you crank that baby over. So this was the second step, was the covering up the front dust collection here. This is just 1/4-inch plywood, and behind this, I don't know if you guys can see, but there's a slot cut. A slot cut in this piece of plywood that's covered by another piece of plywood that allows this thing to move. Now, on the back of the saw, I've done a very similar thing, and let's go check it out. And I had to move the outfeed table for you guys to see this, but the motor hangs out the back, right? And the motor hangs out the back of the saw. So dust collection on this thing, you really gotta, I wanted to have this to where you can move it with the saw. You know, when you move the saw, you didn't have to take it off. You didn't have to have rare earth magnets to remove this thing. This thing stays on the saw, unless of course you've got to get inside there to work on something. But for most general use, you can move this saw blade over to a 45 without worrying about it affecting any of these plates. So what we have here, number one, is the big plate and this is all just spring loaded. See that one spring right there? What holds everything on. And it rides in kind of this groove right here. But when you take it off, you can kind of see my old one. I had another one from a previous design that I kind of left a part of it in there. And then there's this section. So you may be able to see back in there. Okay. Yeah. So we have this slot right here that's roughly 1 inch by 6 inches that the belt runs through. Okay. And this is a linked belt. For this particular setup, you really have to have a linked belt, I think. And then this is where it's a little different, in the sense that this plate right here moves up and down with the belt. When you move the blade up and down, this whole motor assembly moves up and down. And right now it's pretty close to the all the way up position. But these bearings right here, these are rollerblade bearings. They come out of a rollerblade. I took apart some rollerblade wheels I used for another project too. But I had these laying around and I threw this thing together, kind of a prototype. And so it slides in here, this moves, and then this whole thing, this piece rotates. And then whenever, when you're moving it over onto a 45, and this piece slides over there as well. So you don't have to remove any of this stuff to have dust collection. And I've got, geez, I don't know, I would say somewhere in the vicinity of 90% dust closure on the back of this thing. I've got this cut down to, well, there's one little slot right here for the motor mount thingy to go into whenever you change the height. There you can see how that moves with the motor. And then we got a little bit of a hole here. Now in the future I'll probably make this piece a circle, I mean just a larger circle to cover that. You know, I can get all the way up to, in this vicinity, we might get that completely covered all the time. Okay. So there it is. What I'll do is I'll probably make a whole nother video where I disassemble this so that you guys can get a better idea of exactly how it looks, what it looks like. But you know, what I was wanting to do is walk you through the process of kind of making your own, and it was fairly simple. Just map out the movements of the saw on a piece of plywood and then start cutting and then do it again and again. But anyways, so there was a lot of tinkering. I had a whole nother, different, this is the brand new one. I had a whole different one that was shaped completely different than this. It moved with the saw as well, but it didn't have as much coverage as this one. There was a big hole right here where this comes up in an arc that followed this that was constantly open. There's a 45 here, one over there, and there was a big hole here for that. And then when you turned it, so open the vacuum. Okay, YouTube, here is just kind of a test of the dust collection on this thing. I got the vacuum on, the blast gate's closed right now. I'm gonna open it, see how much dust we can get off there. I'd say it's a fair amount, right? Now there's still a lot of dust that it's not going to get down in there because it just kicks off the blade, I guess. You'd have to have overarm suction, which I do not want. For some reason, I'm completely against. You may have noticed there's no guard on this saw. I do not recommend that you do that. You will probably, you probably lose a finger. Go ahead and keep the guard on them, or take it off. I don't care. But every saw made for quite some time now has had their own dust collection units that they came with stock. That is the guard that you take off, and it collects dust. So there you go.